Ahoy, and welcome. This is Admiral, here with a preview of my upcoming mod for the Chimú civilization, and a hefty dose of historical background for the bonuses. The Chimú were admirable artisans, chiefs of the coast, expert engineers, talented traders, ingenious irrigators, masters of metalwork, and the most obvious missed opportunity of the last chieftains, as I said would be the case if not included well before we knew the identity of any of the three new civilizations. While the devs often emphasize how they're looking for interesting stories while choosing a civilization, obviously a key factor for campaign purposes, the Chimú are an outstanding South American civilization pick if you were focusing on iconic hallmarks of civilization, and still do have a fascinating and underrated story. But at least the largely Andean-inspired regional units and architecture lend themselves to a mod representing them. Sort of. While broadly classifiable as Andean for convenience, they were not a mountain people, but lived in Peru's desert north coast, and built with adobe much more than stone. But I won't make perfect the enemy of good. Today we'll be getting into their civilization bonuses and technology tree, considering gameplay and manifestations of historical themes, and in the near future we'll continue with their unique building, units, and technologies. This concept is more than a couple years old, but adapted to changes from the DLC and naval rework. As mentioned in a previous video, I will be partially basing this off the Moche, Chimú precursors who can be considered a distinct civilization by maximalists, but who shared a very high degree of cultural, technological, and even ethnic overlap with the later Chimú, and who are sometimes even referred to as the early or proto-Chimú in older academic works, although modern scholarship favors Moche as a distinct label. But as far as composite or umbrella civilizations go, this is one of the best possible cases. Like most of my mod civs, this emphasizes experimentation and historical flavor more than an attempt at ideal balance in the current meta, which is mostly academic for a mod anyway, and rarely achieved even by official civilizations on release. But of course feedback is welcome. Anyway, let's get into it. The Chimú will be an infantry and naval civilization, and before we get into the civilization bonuses, let's look at part of the tech tree that establishes an unusually strong and flexible infantry identity. The Chimú have Champi scouts as expected, but perhaps surprisingly, Eagle warriors will be making a comeback. While the Champi is the better all-around option, especially for a low-gold late game, the Eagle provides some flexibility with its extra speed and anti-monk and cavalry bonuses, as well as having a generally inverted cost profile to Champis, allowing for either a gold-heavy or a food-heavy infantry option. Historically speaking, while having no known connection to that Mesoamerican warrior class, Moche bird warriors and runners are one of several surprising but serendipitous parallels to Mesoamerican cultures. They appear quite frequently from pottery to metal bird masks, and even have extremely similar associations as with the Mesoamerican warrior class, namely as elite warriors symbolizing speed and agility, and strong evidence of connection with ritual warfare for purposes of capturing enemies for sacrifice. So I'd say we have a reasonable historical basis for this unusual unit combination. And we'll at least get some local flavor with the Elite upgrade, where I'll be using the unique South American styled skin provided with an event mod. If we wanted this to be super unique, we could call it something like a Falcon or Condor warrior, but the Eagle warrior is already a solid abstraction, certainly better than Japanese trebuchets, Ethiopian onagers, or largely invented units like the Thericidae or Temple Guard, and is a unit we're already familiar with. Speaking of the Temple Guard, the Chimú will get that as well, although only the Muisca will get the Elite upgrade. Personally, I think the Muiscas deserved better than this generic and borderline fanfiction unit, sidelining the historical and iconic Guecha warrior, which should have been much more dominant and versatile than the glorified skirmisher that it is. By contrast, the Moche had prominent military and religious hybrid units including warrior priests, and along with the Chimú, significant evidence of elite guards for palaces, ceremonial spaces, and wakas or temples and other sacred sites. So for my purposes, without removing anything from the Muisca, the Temple Guard makes so much more sense as an Andean regional unit. And it can go to other mod civs like the Chachapoyas or Tiwanaku, or even the Inca if they ever needed it in lieu of getting a second unique unit. For good measure, I'm also giving the Chimú Barracks, Fire Lancers, Jian Swordsmen, Condottieri, and Ibaripema warriors.
Whoa, slow down, Maurice.
Obviously kidding, but noting that the Chimú do have a spectacularly loaded barracks, let's get on to their actual civilization bonuses. The first bonus is that barracks and naval technologies cost 50% less gold and are 50% more effective. First, we'll talk about the cost portion. In Feudal Age, this saves a mere 30 gold on the Champi Runner upgrade and 12 on Arson, but becomes more useful in later ages, especially for halberdier and the elite upgrades. And gold savings on all barracks technologies total 1,050. For naval technologies, this applies to medium warships, careening, dry dock, and shipwright, totaling 500 additional gold saved on water technologies. Now let's move on to the effectiveness increases. This is of course meaningless for unit line upgrades, but does affect technologies that improve unit stats by a certain amount or percentage. Starting with the barracks, this increases the effect of arson from 2 to 3 anti-building damage, and raises the infantry speed boost of squires from 10 to 15%. A simple nod to their infantry-focused militarism and depiction of swift runner or scout units. As for the water aspect, this affects naval technologies at the dock and university. No pre-Columbian American civilization built anything comparable to the great warships of the Old World, but the coastal peoples of Ecuador and northern Peru had the most diverse and advanced watercraft in the New World, including the highest capacity and most seaworthy trade vessels, and the only confirmed use of sails prior to European influence. So they're the closest to actually having boats somewhat resembling the existing generic ship lines. Even the founding lineage of Chimú was said to have arrived by sea. The Moche and Chimú in particular were skilled in harvesting marine resources, from fish and a variety of other seafood, oysters including the valuable spondylus, and even deep-sea fishing for sharks. So this bonus improves the effect of the fishing lines and gill nets technologies, although not to the level of the Japanese bonus. It also affects the available naval techs at the university, with clinker construction and cargo hull providing additional speed like squires, 1 additional pierce armor after researching dry dock, and the wood discount and build speed increase provided by shipwright increased to 30% and 75% respectively. You'll notice that they miss the heavy warships upgrade, meaning they have no Imperial Age specific ships except for that silly catapult galleon. While they have significant naval strengths, they're really not meant to be a late-game naval powerhouse on a per-unit basis in the mold of Portuguese or Koreans. Although as we'll see when we get to their unique technologies, they're still more viable in Imperial Age than you'd guess from their tech tree alone. Next up, Champies can gather meat, build, and repair, giving some credibility to the long-standing overstatement that this type of unit is all-purpose infantry. Originally, long before we knew this DLC would exist, these abilities were going to be split between 2 units, with the Eagle Scout in Dark Age having the hunting ability, and a feudal upgrade to the militia called the Andean Maceman, and using this sprite from Chronicles, having the build and repair function. But obviously we got the Champi Scout in the Dark Age, which actually has an appropriate animation for these functions. So while rather loaded, it makes practical sense to combine these abilities for purposes of a mod. Gathering meat means that the Champi can herd or hunt animals, currently at the same rate as a villager, but of course this can be adjusted up or down, and of course it competes with the necessity of scouting. But if you can squeeze in 4 minutes of hunting into your scout's other duties, that's about 100 food that you didn't need a villager to collect. You want your Champi to work from home as much as possible, and definitely don't want to lose him early. This bonus has a very strong basis in North Coast history and iconography, where warriors are often shown hunting deer and other animals, like this vessel showing them clubbing sea lions. As in some other martial cultures, hunting provided an opportunity for warriors to develop and demonstrate skills that would carry over to combat. I'll leave it to you to make the obvious double entendre about what they're doing here, or perhaps to Spirit of the Law as he seems to be getting his feet wet with that sort of humor. The building and repair portion of the bonus makes some sense practically with their club-like weapon doubling as a construction tool, and applies to anything that can be built or repaired. Like other great Andean civilizations, the Chimú were prolific builders and skilled engineers. Their projects including a lengthy aqueduct bringing water through one of the driest deserts into their capital, Chanchan. The capital was of course their magnum opus, the largest adobe city in the Americas, and at least the second largest in the world, where by some metrics it's put after the Iranian citadel of Bam. Chanchan boasted massive walls and many thousands of buildings including workshops, temples, and palatial elite complexes often called citadels. So after the hunt runs out, your Champis can still get a part-time job in contributing to your vast imperial construction projects. While due to UI restraints, villagers need to place the foundation of all buildings except outposts, Champis can perform the actual construction, for example saving 90 seconds of villager time if you have them build a barracks and a settlement. This could also be used for forward towers, which I'm not too worried about being overpowered given that Champis are kind of squishy right now. There's always the prospect of training more Champi scouts for the hunt and herding boost, but with a pretty limited window for doing so effectively. Also remember that the build rate of Champis was decreased with that silly shotgun nerf update, because the South American outpost rush was clearly the most overpowered aspect of those civilizations. This nerf could be retained on the off chance that a Chimú construction crew is too oppressive, but I'll probably restore their old build rate, or at least bring it closer to what it was before. The repairability applies to everything: buildings, ships, and siege, giving a situationally decent but very micro-dependent bonus, and a bit of extra synergy with rams. The last bonus is that settlements can be upgraded to a unique workshop building, sort of like a New World Feitoria, but available much earlier and different in some other very important ways. We'll get into that next time, as the script has already run on. The team bonus is that slingers and skirmishers train 20% faster. The Moche and Chimú use the sling and atlat as their primary ranged weapons, evidenced by art, artifacts, and stockpiles of sling stones in locations like the Chimú fortress of Kiriwak. This helps smooth out their otherwise extreme barracks dependence by making infantry and archer counters a little more accessible. So those are the bonuses, and here's a quick look at the rest of their tech tree as we wrap up. No arbalesters, thumb ring, or even crossbowmen are available in what is almost certainly an overly bold choice that offsets the flexibility of their barracks. I may need further tweaks to make this work, perhaps making slingers available in feudal age, but requiring a technology gate like stone mining, but for now I'll leave that on the table pending further experiments. Like many Andean adjacent civilizations, the Chimú military did not emphasize archery, but they do get all other relevant range and blacksmith upgrades for fully upgraded skirmishers and slingers. Their siege workshop is okay, same as the Inca or Maya. The university is fairly good, missing only the fireship technologies and of course Bombard Tower, and no hoardings or sappers at the castle. The monastery is quite good, missing only faith, which likely wavered at times when the desert coast was subject to the sudden and devastating floods and droughts of El Niño, perceived as divine anger. But the Chimú were otherwise highly religious and notable for primary worship of the moon, by contrast to the Inca and other sun worshippers. Economic technologies are spotty, missing crop rotation, two-man saw, and stone shaft mining, but we won't have a complete view of their economy until considering their unique building next time. So that's a part of my upcoming Chimú design. Let me know what you think so far. That's all for today, and thanks for watching. This has been me contemplating a choice beyond chiefdoms or confederations, a chief and compelling coastal civilization for your collective consideration. Till next time.